Live. This is SBR Closing Line, September 14th, Week 3 college football. We got California, Las Vegas, Florida, and our neighbors to the north, Canada, covered. All for it. Ian Cameron on Twitter, @Babano. Welcome in, buddy. How you doing today?
How am I doing? I'm always good on a Saturday when it's college football season, just like I am once again today. We're ready to talk. It's not the biggest marquee game week you could imagine in college football, but there's still a lot of good betting spots. That's the bottom line. That's the main thing. That's what matters most, and we'll break it all down for the next hour.
We are breaking it down. We got best bets, couple games that we want to hit on. Also, the late night special. DJ Big Boss from the state of California, killing it like always. Welcome in, buddy. Happy Saturday morning to you.
Happy Saturday morning to all my guys right here, man. I want to give a big what up, though, to all those in the chat, man. It's Saturday morning. Y'all know what time it is. College football. Got a busy schedule ahead of me after the show, but I'm going to be on this phone and watching these scores and these games on the go for a little while with my daughters this morning. But definitely going to be sitting around and watching these even games real good.
Real good, absolutely. Maybe not the most marquee games, but for a sports bettor, man, there is some value out there to be had. Hopefully we can find it. And @BigRagoo62 on Twitter, Mr. Big Ragoo, happy Saturday morning to you from the state of Florida.
Speaking of the state of Florida, we were looking at some weather systems that kind of went off to the coast a little bit. So there was a interesting look on the game. We might talk about it, the UCF game, that a lot of action coming in that way. And man, I'll tell you what, I got my little magnifying glass. I'm going to try to find some winners in this tough board today, but there is some value, and let's get down to it, guys.
Absolutely, man. Say it all the time. You know, college football, maybe week 2, week 8 or 9, I put it up there against any other in time in terms of value towards the sports bettor against the odds makers. So hopefully we can find out. I know I need your guys' help. You know, it's been a kind of touch and go to start on college football, but best bets, we are 6-6. We will get to those at the end of the show. And thanks to DJ Big Boss, we are up a little bit over 1 unit. That week 0 Arizona plus money line is keeping us above the board. Hey, let's not bury the lead, Big Ragoo. We got Stanford at UCF. We can talk about it right off the start in the Bounce House in Orlando. Looking at SBR odds right now, 3:30 kickoff on ESPN. Opened UCF about -7, been pushed up here to about -9 and 10 now at some shops, 59 the total. You brought up the weather, man, and I really think that would favor Stanford. Now, overall in this game, I like UCF. I like UCF big. I bet them personally. I think Stanford's going to have a tough time guarding. Plus the fact UCF's front 7 has been pretty stout up front. I don't think they get ran over at all. And the left tackle for Stanford being out, I think Stanford's going to have a tough time spot-wise going across the country. Then also next week having to go back and play Oregon. I'd watch out. I'd look for Stanford to be a fade here. But Big Ragoo, any insight there from I guess right near on location?
Yeah. Originally, like you said, the line's at 7. Creeping on up to 10s. Like if you didn't get in early on this game, you know, when the 7s were available, 7.5s, you know, those were some pretty good looks early. There were some question marks with the quarterback situation with Stanford and the left tackle being gone now, you know, but originally I did get down on this game at 7.5. I like that look. And I think you probably pretty safe to say that, you know, the public and the sharps are on this one. So, you know, use a little caution here as far as, you know, getting down on a big number. But at the same time, I think it's going to be a lot of one-sided action here. It's a sandwich spot for these guys going back west, you know, playing a big game next week. And I have a real strong lean on the UCF Knights here.
Yeah, I do as well. And Big Ragoo, just a question about the weather there. Is it that bad? I mean, when you look at, you know, the weather websites, it looks like 18 miles per hour with about 30 to 40% chance of rain depending on the hour. Yeah. What are you seeing there near Orlando?
I'm thinking the system's moving out towards, you know, east in the Atlantic. The original, they had some stronger winds, and I don't think the weather is going to be that much of a factor. You know, earlier in the day, not so much. Maybe later in the evening, it might get some showers, some rains, but I don't think it's going to be a bigger factor. So early in the week, I was cautioning about a total move in there. I kind of was like you. I was thinking it would favor Stanford with their style of play to kind of slow the game down, the pace down a little bit. But I think they should be fine. I think the weather is going to be a non-issue in this game.
Okay, and it's always tough to bet UCF games under, but if weather is an issue, that might be an opportunity. Ian, what are you thinking here with UCF, man? You think there's still value on them? 19-6, their last 25 ATS. They've been a money maker for a lot of sports bettors out there.
I'm not impressed with Stanford. I haven't been all season long. I don't. It's just a program that looks like it's declining ever so slightly. I didn't mind the UCF bet at -7. It's up to 10 now. The one thing about Stanford is their long-term track record as a dog is pretty good. Under David Shaw, 19-9-1 against the spread as a dog since 2008, 10-3 ATS as a dog of a touchdown or more. So all of that really bodes well, technical-wise, trend-wise, towards Stanford. But I question the spot here a little bit. Who's going to really take this game more? Not that Stanford doesn't want to win it, but this is big time for UCF. You don't get a Power 5 opponent coming into your home field very often, a chance to really showcase yourself as a program, a chance for, I think for them to really flex their muscles a bit. Because I'll be honest, I was very, very disappointed with Stanford's defense. I know Slovis played very well for USC, but that's a guy making his first start. And it's not even a guy that was one of the top recruits at the quarterback position for USC. Basically comes in from nowhere, taking it over for JT Daniels, who's of course out for the season, just moves the ball at will. Up and down they went last week against that Stanford defense. So that's a defense I don't trust now going on the road facing this UCF offense. I know obviously it's an offense that's really hasn't skipped much of a beat, to be honest with you, even though Milton, of course, is still rehabbing from the injuries. The quarterback they've had has been fantastic. The offense has still moved the ball extremely well, and even their defense has picked it up. Defense has always been the sore spot of the Knights. Going back to the Scott Frost tenure, they were always a little bit shaky on that side of the ball, but they've improved and stepped it up and gradually played better, I think, on the defensive side of the football here. And, the Stanford offense doesn't do a whole lot for me. There's no Bryce Love anymore. There's no Ortega-Whiteside anymore. Where are the playmakers for this team? Now, KJ Costello is going to play in this game, and that's a big boost because, quite honestly, the backup quarterback wasn't impressive to me when he took over in the Northwestern game or when he played last week against USC. So having Costello back will help this Stanford team for sure. I don't argue with the UCF side. My issue is it's 10 now in a lot of spots. I think the value is starting to slip away. And that Stanford long-term dog track record does, cause me to step back and pause just a little bit. I think if you bet UCF -7, you have a good number. But if you're betting it now and you haven't bet UCF yet, I'd pump the brakes at the current number.
All right, good stuff, Ian. We got a bunch of guys in the chat box. Nasty Nate, Ron, Jace, welcome in, guys. We do have Tomar saying he's on Stanford +9, Ohio State -16, Alabama -25.5, saying that UCF's front is a little young and Stanford will be able to run on them. So kind of a look the other way. That's what makes a market. So good stuff there. Tomar, Nolly Nose in the house. Guys, welcome in. 11 a.m. Eastern each and every Saturday. DJ Big Boss, Big Ragoo, Ian Cameron, and myself will be here breaking down the games from a betting perspective. Jace asking about Kentucky. He's thinking they hang in there. Low scoring possibly. DJ Big Boss, what are you thinking here? UCF versus Stanford. I know you know the Stanford program. Also, is there another game you wanted to bring up? Maybe on Saturday's card?
Absolutely. I'll touch on that UCF game. I hopped on it earlier. I got it at 7.5. Just a lot of value in it. Just one of the first things that jumped off the board when I first looked at the board for the week. So I hopped on that with great line value at this point. But after being on it for a while and discussing the weather and seeing a lot of low baggers input, my guy Ragoo's his input on this one, it wasn't enough to, jump off it, but, it's a tricky spot here. But I agree with Ian when we say that Stanford just ain't been made up what they supposed to be made up. They riding around on a donut, man. They ain't really got a full tire going on. And I don't know, we keep overlooking that the main thing that declined, the baddest loss for them was the offensive lineman that went down,
right? Not
just the quarterback, but now the quarterback doesn't look like he was seasoned enough to step up in that spot. And here we go. They got to travel, to this game. So I'm still liking UCF. On the UCF side of things, they really have to, they made a big talk, and you'll hear me say Notre Dame 1,000 times on this show before it's all over. But they called us out for having a soft schedule, and they should have been in there and all this kind of stuff. So they talked enough talk that now that they getting the opportunity to play this class team, they really need to show up today in this game, rain, sleet, or snow. And they get a banged up Stanford team, and they should be able to do that. They get a Pac-12 that's not the Pac-12 that they used to be, except for the refs doing all the stuff they do late night like they did last night. But going into some games today, let's jump over straight into the Hawaii game since we all have something to go about Hawaii now. I went and broke this game down, and McDonald, man, I just can't. He's a leader. He's a gunslinger. He's a risky guy. He can run. He can throw, and he can move this offense. He knows it well now, so he can move this offense up and down the field. But don't really like taking Hawaii, almost not at all, when they're on the U.S. because the travel over there kind of throws them off, and that's why we got a big number right here. But I think people still stereotyping Hawaii of what they can and what they can't do. They have some excellent athletes. If you're in the recruiting, you know that the Hawaii book is open. They're getting a lot of good guys. We got 2 of them over on Notre Dame. They're getting them in big places to play good ball, so those guys can play a little better defense than they're known for playing, and they can really move that ball. So give me the points all the way with Hawaii on that one. Anybody got any breakdown on that?
I know, Ian, you were interested in the Hawaii versus Washington game, talking off camera. Hawaii, playing on the mainland, like DJ Big Boss said. But hey, Ian, they're already 2-0 against the Pac-12. Now, this is a step up in competition. I still like the Rainbow Warriors here, plus a big number. All they got to do is stay within 3 touchdowns. Plus, that back door could be open.
Yeah, I lean a little bit to Hawaii. I don't love it. I don't love Hawaii anywhere. Remember, I loved Hawaii against Arizona when we were all in Miami. Man, that was fun. I missed that trip. It was so enjoyable. But nevertheless, I liked Hawaii a lot that day. The thing that attracts me to Hawaii at least a little bit tonight is the fact they're catching more than 3 touchdowns. And they're a team that can score you points when you're down 24, 28. In the late few minutes of the game, get that backdoor touchdown. The one issue for me here is Hawaii, from a receiver standpoint, is going up against a pass defense for Washington. That's the strength of their defense. Washington's defense has been a little bit susceptible against the run so far this season, but against the pass, they've been very, very stout. And Hawaii's really a pass-heavy offense. So that's a little bit of a matchup concern that I've got for Hawaii. We know their and their defense concerns me. Their defense is still not playing great. We saw Oregon State really absolutely just, move the ball up and down against them, even though Hawaii won that game last week, although they didn't get the point spread cover. That does concern me. Jacob Eason had an off game yet last week when they lost outright against California. I don't know whether to downgrade Washington for that loss, you guys, though, because it was a weird environment. They had the long lightning delay, which was 2.5 hours long. You come back out, maybe you're flat, and you're especially more flat if you're the home team because you're coming back from the lightning delay. There's nobody in the seats. Everybody had basically left by the time the game resumed last week after that lightning delay. So I think maybe just the lethargic, sterile environment seeped into the play of that Washington team on the football field last week. I still think Eason's really good. He's a big upgrade, in my opinion, from Browning, in my opinion. So I got a small bet on Hawaii, also a small bet over this total, because I tell you what, I don't think Hawaii's shutting Washington down. Not Eason. I think that in this offense, I think they're going to be able to move this football quite well against a Hawaii defense that's still been susceptible. I think Washington can get you 30 points, 31, something like that. The question is, can you get something like 14, 17 from Hawaii? I think it's quite possible in this football game, but I think Washington will score at least into the 30s. So I'm going to look Hawaii plus the points over the total as well. 58.5 current number there.
Good stuff from me and Cameron on Twitter at Babano. We got guys in the chat box chatting it up here. Nutflush Allen in here. What's up, man? Don Ricci saying West Virginia 4-13, revenging a loss. North Carolina State 19-6 versus teams averaging less than 23 points per game. So some good trends there from Dom Ricci. Bunch of guys here in the chat. Jason Kelly saying not all wind is created equal when we're talking about the UCF game. and the weather going on there in Central and South Florida. And for what it's worth, my cousin just texted me tailgating at the UCF game, said it's great tailgating weather. He doesn't think the weather will be induced, so take that for what it's worth. We got Big Ragoo. I know any here thoughts on the Hawaii game, plus towards the beginning of the card here, games going off in about a half hour, 40 minutes from now. Yeah. You had something on the Maryland Temple game. That line's been shifting all over, guys. Got to check out SBR odds right now for the best line on that. What are you thinking here with the Terps and the Owls?
Maryland's gotten off to a fantastic start, haven't they? They had two really they whooped up on Syracuse last week, and if you kind of unpeel the layers on that game, if you look at the numbers that Syracuse put up against them, there really weren't that bad numbers. They just had a real efficient offense. They were able to move the ball pretty well, and even though Syracuse did, I think DeVito had 3 touchdowns with a pick, and the score was indicative of how the game was played. I still think Maryland has got a lot of talent, underrated talent on that team, and they're going to go face a Temple team today that's pretty physical. I know some of the sharp money has come in on Temple. I think the line's sitting at 6.5. It's their first game. It's kind of oddly enough that Temple's only played one game. They played, I think, Bucknell early, like week 1, and then had a week off, and now they're getting back to playing their second game of the season. So they've been sitting around. They've had 2 weeks to prepare for this game, and I think a lot of people might be surprised how good that Maryland's actually stepped up and played. I think before Durkin, made his exits, he had done some pretty solid recruiting there. So I was kind of torn when I first looked at it, but you know what? I went back in and looked at what Maryland's accomplished in the short haul. I think they're a solid look here against a tough Temple team. If you can get it less than a touchdown, I would seriously lean on that side and take the -6.5 if it's still available. I like Maryland to get the job done against Temple.
Yeah, there is 6.5 out there, but guys, at SBR odds, and by the way, shout out to SBR putting this show on each and every Saturday, 11 a.m. Eastern, keeping it free content out there. Check out the best sportsbook page on SBR Sportsbook Review. Make sure to always have more than one sportsbook to be able to kind of shop around for the best number. Shopping for good numbers is a very important part of sports betting. And Big Ragoo, we're seeing it as low as Maryland -5 right now. We're seeing 5.5. There is a big discrepancy in where this number is. Yeah. So you like the Terps -5, huh?
Well, here's another thing. Now, Temple, they bring in Rod Carey from Northern Illinois. Now, he's a pretty good coach over there, but it's not that it's a bowl game, but he's like 0-6 in bowl games, so he's really stepping up in class in this game off of the first game that he played. So, and there's a lot of question marks around him on the offense. Now, they've got a solid middle linebacking core that, where it's the lights out, probably one of the best units in the country. So, if Maryland could run the ball against that unit, it might be a long day for Northern Illinois. That's the look you're going to have to watch. You got to watch Maryland's run game versus the linebacking crew of Temple here.
Good stuff, Big Ragoo. DJ Big Boss, did you have anything you wanted to throw out on the early slate? I know we got guys asking FAU, Ball State. I have a look on that one. Or Ian, did you like anything here on the early slate, the 12 or 1 o'clock Eastern games?
Yeah, I'm on, and it's actually in the pick 6. I just put my pick 6 on the contest picks in just before the show started. This is my best bet when it comes to that contest anyway. It won't be for this show. I'll pick something else, but I like Air Force plus the points against Colorado here in this early game. This is a horrible spot for the Buffs. This is as bad as it gets. You're off back-to-back intense games against Colorado State and against Nebraska. You came back from basically the dead to beat Nebraska last week in overtime. Now you got to come back this week. This is an 11 a.m. kickoff in Boulder. That crowd's going to be empty. I'm telling you, they're not filling that stadium at 11 a.m. local time for Air Force. You kidding me? That there's no way that's going to be the same strong home field for Colorado that it would be in another scenario such as last week. And they don't stop the run. And that's a problem when you're facing Air Force, obviously. Triple option offense, Hammond, the quarterback's been there for a while now, been running that triple option extremely well. It's a loaded Air Force team in terms of experience. It's a lot of returning talent on both sides of the football. They're Air Force also off a bye week going into this game, fresh, ready to go, extra prepared. This has been the role you want to back Air Force in. Air Force obviously laying points as with Army, Navy, any of those teams, you lay points with them, it can be a little bit treacherous. But you take points with them, it's been really, really good. And when you look at it from an Air Force perspective, in the underdog role, they've been absolutely fantastic. 17-8-1 against the spread their last 26 tries as a dog, 10-3-1 against the spread as a road dog in their last 14 games in that situation. I think it's a very good spot for them. The Buffalo's head coach, Mel Tucker, actually, I remember seeing this quote of his before the season, fall camp, saying most of our fall camp's been prepping on defense for spread offenses that we're going to play throughout the course of the season. You know, like the teams they played in the first 2 weeks, Nebraska and Colorado State. They actually threw a question at him about the Air Force game. He says, we haven't spent a lot of time prepping for the triple option. I think it shows today in this game. We'll go with Air Force, and wouldn't shock me to see them win.
Like an Air Force, the Falcons. Nice. And another game here, guys are talking about on the earlier slates, FAU at Ball State. We got Conference USA versus Maction, seeing FAU minus 2.5, 64.5 being the total. This is a game I got interested in, guys. I just bet it before the show. I like FAU here, and I'll tell you why. Because, you know, when you look at pretty much across the whole country, quality losses, I don't think it gets any stronger than this FAU Owls team. They lost to Ohio State and they lost to UCF, two very strong teams. And now having to face Ball State, a MAC team, 1-1 on the season. And yeah, they did have a good game against an FCS opponent, I believe Furman. But Furman, from what I've heard from FCS people, isn't a very strong FCS team. So I see FAU, you know, a bunch of South Florida talent going up to MAC land and coming out, you know, a small favorite, big blowout here. I like FAU minus 2.5. Now, on the other side of that, and if any of you guys have any kind of input on this, I would be interested. You know, FAU played up at Ohio State in the Horseshoe, 90,000 plus people, and then at home for arguably their best home game atmosphere against UCF, a packed stadium there in Boca Raton. Now they're going up to Ball State, a place, you know, they're not going to be really familiar with, might be a sleepy atmosphere, and they might not show up. But still, I don't think that that's kind of outweighed by the talent discrepancy here that FAU will have over Ball State. So I like them minus 2.5. But DJ Big Boss, did want to get it into you here. Any opinion here on FAU Ball State, and what's the next game you wanted to bring up, man?
No opinion on that Ball State game. Line's too close. It's a lot of capping to get on the right side on that one. So throw me in the smoke, Drew. Throw me right in the smoke again for the second week in a row, and I'm going right after the Ohio State-Indiana game. Just because Indiana is at home, and, you know, they're a little better team than some of the teams Ohio State been playing. They're not getting in front of this Ohio State train. These guys are awesome on every side of the ball. Couldn't see any real flaws in what Ohio State going. And, you know, situationally right here, they got to play with a chip on their shoulder. I mean, people talk bad about them early, you know, with the change from Urban Myers, the new quarterback. And from the looks of things of watching tape, everything looks great. And guess what? With this quarterback that they got right there, he's so mobile that you don't even got to worry about too many interceptions, because most of the time, if it's not, the look is not there right away, he's off to the races, that Justin Fields guy. So I got the number early on this one. It's way up to 18 now. I wouldn't take it at 18, but it could be a blowout easily. But I got it early off when it first jumped off at 15. So I'm taking it right there with Ohio State to go ahead and thrash these guys in Indiana. Road game for Ohio State. Let's go Ohio State.
Like in the Buckeyes in that one. Good one, DJ Big Boss. Hey, Big Ragoo, another game here you wanted to bring up, Arizona State, Michigan State. Talking about head coaches, two older guys, but well-known names here. And Herm Edwards, one of my favorites. What are you thinking here with the Spartans and Sun Devils, man?
I like this game a lot. This particular game, you got ASU coming in to East Lansing. Last year they met up down in Tempe with Herm Edwards' his first year, and he took a pretty good look at this team, and he was able to pull off an upset at home, you know, getting 4.5 at home, winning outright. Solid look there, you know, kind of got the locker room behind him and everything. This year, the tables are going to be turned just a little bit. I mean, if you look at the number, that's a pretty big number. I got in on this game. It was like 14.5. It's up to like 16 now, 16.5, creeping on up So there's a lot of key factors in this game. Number one, Michigan State's the number one rushing defense in the nation, okay? They've got solid looks. They got 3 first-team all-conference guys, one on the defensive line, one at middle linebacker, one in the corner. So the look at this game is going to have a tough time for Arizona to put points on the board. I think Michigan, I'm not going to say they're going to have their way with them, but if a team is going to have a way, this is going to be the game with the big number on the board today. I just think it's a great spot. You got D'Antone going for his school record and wins today. It's a revenge factor type game at home, and there's going to be a lot of emotion involved in this game. And I'm not one to lay double digits with this team normally because they kind of hang around and I like them as a dog more than likely. But in this spot today, I love this game. I'm already in with the 14.5. Like I say, the number's creeping up. So maybe if you want to get involved, you better hurry up because I think it probably goes off at 17 by the time game time comes off.
So the importance of grabbing the good numbers, good stuff there, Big Ragoo. Ian, I know in the SEC East beat here on the Florida Gators versus the Kentucky Wildcats, seeing 46 the total now with the Gators laying 9 or 9.5 in Lexington. What are you thinking here?
Yeah, I agree with Michigan State, by the way. Big Ragoo liking that side quickly because Arizona State's offense is a real concern. Like, they've had trouble moving the ball the first 2 weeks against Kent State and Sacramento State at home. I know they put 30 points on Kent State, but when you consider the fact they're up against a very fast-paced, up-tempo offense, they're getting a lot more offensive possessions in a game like that. So to only score 30 points in a game with more possessions like that, that's not very impressive. And then, of course, last week against Sacramento State, they couldn't move the ball at all. And now you got to go on the road, face that Sparty defense. This is one of those games where I don't know if Arizona State breaks 6 or 7 points in this game. I think it's going to be really tough sledding for them to move that ball. So I agree with the Spartan side. I hate laying double digits usually with D'Antonio and the Spartans, but I'm going to do it there as well in that game. As far as Florida, Kentucky, obviously we know the quarterback situation for Kentucky changing. Terry Wilson getting injured, backup having to come in. I don't see it's a big drop-off because I've never been a big fan of Terry Wilson, the quarterback, before for Kentucky. He's been very erratic throwing the football. They've had to rely on the run game because their passing game has been sort of spotty at best with him under center. That being said, you're still going to ask this new quarterback for Kentucky to have to go in there, face a Florida defense that's no joke. It could be a little bit of tough sledding, baptism by fire, so to speak, for this new starter for Kentucky here in this game. Florida, on the other hand, with Felipe Franks, he didn't necessarily play a crisp, clean game. I remember going back to the game they played against the Miami Hurricanes early in the season. But, bottom line is they found a way to get the win. He put the drives together when he had to. Kentucky's been pretty solid so far. I'll be honest. Everybody's saying the death of Kentucky, and they're going to fall apart, losing Benny Snell, losing Josh Allen, losing key personnel on both sides of the football from last year's team. Well, they haven't, but they beat Toledo in a game where Toledo's starting quarterback got injured, and they beat Eastern Michigan at both of those games at home. So let's see how they do here now in this game, taking on the Florida Gators. Their really first tall order of the season, big challenge. I would only look at Florida. That would be definitely a lean of mine here in this game. Not a strong opinion, but I'm going to need to see Kentucky, especially now down to a backup quarterback, see what they can do moving the ball against this Gators team. I don't know if they're going to have a lot of success offensively. For me, it's Florida minus the points is the way I'd lean from a side perspective. The total's already been hit down, and I totally understand why. You've lost a lot of value on it, but the under is the only thing I could play from a totals perspective here.
Yeah, and good breakdown on the quarterback situation as well. Sawyer Smith transfer from Troy. Watching a lot of Troy games the last couple of years. He could throw the ball down the field. I think they're actually going to be improved in terms of the passing game. Now, the running game, maybe not so much. Not that he's immobile. It's just I don't know. It's an interesting, kind of tricky handicap, and I think he can have success. So Kentucky plus the points, I don't know. I haven't invested in it personally as of right now. Talking about Florida teams, though, an interesting handicap in their own right. The Florida State Seminoles going on the road to Charlottesville, catching about a touchdown here. And talk about, hot seats. Willie Taggart only in his second year. not off to a good start this year against Louisiana Monroe, needing the missed extra point. But Big Ragoo, I know you got a beat here on the Seminoles. I think they're really up against it. I think Virginia is the side. The Wahoos have the better quarterback, in my opinion, the better coach. They're at home. I think their talent is right there with them. I'm laying it with UVA, man. How do you feel?
Yeah, this could be a double up spot here in this game. Both, Ian. I know Ian likes Florida State on the totals on the overs, and I tend to agree with him there. I mean, you get a lot of different looks in this game. Boise State at home, an L. L.A. Monroe overtime, with the missed extra point, an L. So those games, they're scoring. Florida State is putting up points, but their defense is giving up almost like 600 yards a game, which is insane. Now they go face a defensive-minded Virginia team. Bronco Mendenhall, he's got that team really rolling in the right direction. And offensively, they're not super. They're not a really high-scoring opponent offense, but against this Florida State defense, you don't have to be. So I think Florida State will get their looks. I think they'll definitely score points. I think with the OC that's came in for them, he has some scripted plays that they run, and it just seems like after the second quarter, I think they kind of change it and put the ball back in Taggart's courts. And I'm not liking what I'm seeing there. And like you said, he is on the hot seat, and I see some issues there. But I tend to agree with you. I like Virginia laying the touchdown here, and I take a serious look at the total because I think it's like 52, 53 points, whatever it might be.
55 and a half. Yeah.
Is that high? 55? It's not going to matter because I think Florida State has probably scored, at least 4 or 5 touchdowns themselves, and with the W on the other side, you're probably looking at probably about a 60, 67, 68 point game here.
And Ian, what are your thoughts here? Seminoles versus the Wahoos in Charlottesville, man. Should be a fun one.
I'm just going to go back to the old philosophy of if it ain't broke, don't fix it. I've been on the overs in Florida State games twice in a row. Boise State, UL Monroe last week. Couldn't be any easier. Cashing both of those. We're going to stick with it again this week. And I like Virginia minus the 7 as well. I think I like the over just a little bit more, a half unit more on the over than the side. But I think both of them are pretty good ways to go in this game. Now, I know this total's actually come down. This is a weird movement here. It opened 56, went up to as high as 58.5. And now it's come crashing back down to 55.5 in a lot of places. There is a risk of some thunderstorms in Charlottesville tonight. I did hear that. That might be affecting it. Maybe it's respect for Virginia's defense, which I can understand. I mean, Virginia's got a very, very good defense. Florida State's offense may not move as sharply or crisply as they did the first couple of games against Boise and Monroe. But Virginia's defense, and it is good. Like the D-line's got talent. They've got a very good secondary. All 3 units of that defense are very, very talented. It won't be easy for Florida State. But it's also easily the best offense Virginia will be facing. They've faced a very one-dimensional Pitt offense that has no passing game. Kenny Pickett is still struggling. That was their first opponent. And then they played William and Mary last week. So they haven't really faced a step-up-in-class competition on the offensive side of the football. And then on the other side of the ball, you've got Florida State's defense. Big Ragoo mentioned it. I think we could put some helmets and pads on the 4 of us. We'd be able to move the ball and score some touchdowns against Florida State right now. They've been absolutely a sieve on that side of the ball, unable to stop the pass, unable to stop the run. No pass rush, none, 0. You look at Bachmeier in the first game. You look at Evans, the Monroe quarterback last week, all the time in the world in the pocket to find his receivers down the field. That's bad news against Bryce Perkins, dual threat. It's bad enough when you can't get pressure on a quarterback that can't move. Well, you can't get a pressure on a quarterback that can move like Bryce Perkins can. That's going to be even worse, I think, for Virginia. I think Virginia's offense breaks out. They didn't necessarily play great last week against William and Mary. They didn't play the best offensively against Pitt, although they still got to 30 points in that game against Pittsburgh. And I'm willing to say Pittsburgh's defense is better than Florida State's right now at this stage of the season. So give me Virginia here, minus the points, minus the 7.5, I think is where it is now. And I like the over. And if you like the over, maybe wait it out a little bit more because we've seen this number come crashing down. Maybe you get an even better number just before kickoff. But I think the chance of some thunderstorms and maybe some betting market respect and love for Virginia's defense are causing that downward move. But I disagree with it.
Good stuff, Ian. And guys, remember on SBR Odds, Ian talks about waiting for the right number. You can check out all the numbers there. both sides and totals. Use the tabs at the top for first half, first quarter. Also, if you scroll over Time TV, the TV, which channel it will be on, ESPN, ACC Network, CBS Sports, all listed there next to the numbers as well. It's a great resource. SBR odds, if you're a sports bettor, kind of always needs to be up on your computer in some form or fashion, in my opinion. Guys, we have Texas Tech at Arizona. The late night singled out degenerate special. We know we're going to get into that. We got money line underdogs as well. But let's talk about any other games anybody wanted to bring up. DJ Big Boss, what other games did you want to bring up for the listeners, man?
I definitely want to talk about the USC BYU game.
Good one.
That's going down now. USC goes on their first road game right here with their new quarterback, Slovis, who's doing well with the new offense. Looks like all the pieces of the puzzle are lining up. And they get this BYU team that's a little undersized. They fight pretty hard. I watched them in the Utah game, but not they're a class down from USC right now. Even though USC is kind of like in a, I would say more of like a frozen state. I wouldn't say they're rebuilding, but we kind of don't know where this ship is really going. But they still trying, and they're 2-0 right now. So I think USC may be the shocker in the Pac-12 right now. They're going to always hang their legacy over the head of all their opponents when they play them, even in the down year. So they go into BYU, which is not a long trip or nothing right there. Nothing to do and be over there. So what they're going to do is focus on football. And I think they come out, and the defensive line at USC is tremendous. And the things that they're doing in the secondary, it's hit or miss, but BYU is not, throwing the ball out there crazy like Stanford or nothing like that. So I think USC takes control of this team and gets a nice win on the road, and at for the price. And the line pretty much stayed right where it's been, a touchdown basically. I'll give them a touchdown over BYU. I like that.
I like USC as well. Provo, I mean, some people say it's a tough place to play. I'm not really in that camp. I think USC has more talent and just a short number here under a touchdown. I like the Trojans as well. Big Ragoo, we got Don Ricci asking, what about Arkansas State plus a big number here, man? And he's got a point. It's a look-ahead spot for Georgia. They're playing Notre Dame next week. Also the same can be said for Notre Dame. Playing Georgia next week, hosting New Mexico. It's just New Mexico's terrible. Arkansas State is at least, a top-notch Sun Belt program, perennial Sun Belt program here at the top of the conference. What are you thinking here, Arkansas State plus the points in Athens?
Yeah, I like the other team.
Okay.
Here's how I capped the game. Arkansas State played that real emotional game last week, which we were all over that, by the way, as a 1-point dog. They won by like 30 against UNLV. That was my underdog play last week. But this week I'm going to go against them with a little different look, though, because they did leave their hearts on the field. Very emotional game. Now they come back, and even though Georgia's got the not a sandwich game, but basically they're not. I'm not going to say they're going to look ahead to Notre Dame. I think they're going to take a different look on this game. I think what they're going to do, they're going to come out to a pretty fast start. They'll probably, get to where they need to be by halftime. And then you probably like late in the third quarter, they'll probably be looking maybe at second stringers, bringing them in, and then mop up crew late in the fourth. But I think they're going to probably put the emphasis in the first half of this game, and then, maybe start resting some starters like later on in the second half. So I'm going to lay the 20 points with Georgia here, even though the game's like 33 points. And have you noticed there's been a big pattern with these top tier schools, these top 5 schools, where the books are trying to stay ahead of these halftime bets, because that was a pretty popular thing with like the Alabamas, the Clemsons and stuff. So there's probably not the greatest value in that number, but I think, the muscle and the sheer will of the team is going to, get the production they need early, and then, start looking at the second half. So I just capped the first half of this game, and I like Georgia in this spot.
So Georgia first half, and then to call off the dogs, no pun intended, in the second half. Brandon Lugo, shout out on that in the chat box. DJ Big Boss, what about the other side of that? Anything on the Arkansas State game? Also, Notre Dame with a look-ahead spot as well against New Mexico. Bob Davies' bunch. Bob Davie not making the trip to South Bend, a medical issue, but still, this New Mexico team isn't very good, are they, DJ Big Boss?
Hey, that's why they call us the boss and the sauce, because where I fall off, the sauce picks right up, and I don't have no look on that game. But I was just sitting here thinking too, I need to give my people in the chat, my Notre Dame view of Notre Dame. Yeah, New Mexico's not a great team, but once again, I'm not on the game because Notre Dame is not in the business of beating people by that many points. That's just not what we do. And just like Big Ragoo said with Georgia, I think we got the same situation here with Notre Dame, and you're getting like 36 points or something like that, 34, 36, somewhere up in there. Notre Dame's definitely going to let up off the gas in the second half. They're going to want to run some looks with their backups. When I went to the Notre Dame and Navy game, I noticed that Kelly's quick to pull out the second team, the third team, and give them a shot. And we were up at halftime. Come out second half, it was a whole new defensive line in the first series of the second half. So that just shows you how far in preparation Kelly looks down the line. And what are we going to get for kicking in the crap out of New Mexico? And we have always been a team that, it's almost any given Saturday because we've been beat by worse, in our history. So you always got to be careful with that with Notre Dame. And this is how they always come up with the argument that Notre Dame is weak and they don't this, that, and the other, is that when we play teams like this, we're not going to go all out to try to kick them in their face 56-6 or nothing like that. That's not been a part of our culture. So, if you're on a parlay card or something like that, man, toss New Mexico in there and take them points. That's a good look for you today. I'm not particularly back in Notre Dame. I don't see the total in this one. That could be up or down. It's all up to Book. Book came out the first week, and he was kind of jittery. If you look at the interviews, Kelly said he never settled down. The guy never settled down in the whole game, and we got away with the win. But we had a week off, and he had a little chance to probably get some one-on-one with Kelly and try to pump him up a little bit. So we may get a way better performance out of Book, but hey, he might start off slow again. And, Kelly's never going to push it. He's similar to Bill Belichick. He studies the numbers and all that good stuff. He's never going to push it. He's going to continue to use the run to open up the pass. When the pass doesn't work, he's going to punt the ball and let the defense do what they do. So, yeah, plus those points might be nice, but maybe team total or something for that game if you can find something good. But that's my look on Notre Dame for y'all today. I had to let y'all know about that Notre Dame thing.
The Irish, absolutely. He's in the state of California, but a good Notre Dame fan there, knows the program inside and out. Ian, want to throw it over to you, but guys, over 300 people watching. We really appreciate it. If you could hit the like button, the thumbs up button, that would help us all out. And if you could retweet on Twitter, share on your social media networks, love to get the word out on the show. We'll be here 11 a.m., 8 a.m. Pacific, 11 a.m. Eastern, each and every Saturday, breaking down the card from a betting perspective. Ian, keep it in mind, we got Arizona and Texas Tech, the degenerate special to come, plus best bets. Any other games you wanted to throw out there to the listeners, man?
Yeah, I'm looking at, let's see what we got here. I'm going to take a chance with the Northern Illinois Huskies here, plus 14 against Nebraska tonight, because Nebraska's 3-12 ATS, their last 15 at home. You're looking at a Nebraska team that I don't know if they're going to be fully ready to go off that just gut-wrenching, heartbreaking loss last week against Colorado. They had that game well in hand, double-digit lead, fourth quarter. They let it slip away, and now they got to bounce back. Let's really look at Nebraska in depth here so far through two games. This was the hype team coming into this season. Everybody's singing their praises, how great this Nebraska team, ready to take that next step coming into this season. They were lethargic and very unimpressive against a really bad South Alabama team, or at least a South Alabama team that I think is going to be pretty bad this season in their first game. And then last week, okay, they play better, but fourth quarter comes around, they can't get a stop. All of a sudden, Adrian Martinez can't move the football. The offensive line's not blocking, not getting holes open for the ground game, not protecting Martinez. And next thing you know, Colorado ties that game and wins it in overtime. Now they're going to have to bounce back. Scott Frost was quoted as saying it's one of the toughest losses I've ever been a part of. That's not a bet on quote coming into this game. When I'm hearing the coach saying stuff like that, that reflects down, that translates down to the players. Players are going to hear that. You got to keep a positive mindset at all times. You keep players upbeat, keep the energy high, keep the confidence high. When you're coming into off that game, that terrible loss, you're not saying, You should be saying, I believe in this group. We're on to the next one. We got to just get right back to work. When you're saying that's one of the toughest losses I've ever been a part of, that's a Debbie Downer statement right there. And that's not the kind of thing I want to hear out of my 2-touchdown favorite in this game tonight against Northern Illinois. And say what you will about Northern Illinois. Did you see the game against Utah that they played last week? They hung in there against that Utah Utes team. That game was tied in the first half. They didn't look – they got, I think, a little bit worn down physically in the second half. Why not? I mean, Utah always has been strong in the trenches, and I think finally they wore Northern Illinois down late in that game. But they hung tough. They covered the number as a big underdog there. And here's a great – you talk about Nebraska's failure as home chalk. Northern Illinois is 9-1 against the spread their last 10 games against the Big Ten. So you talk about a track record of being able to step up against teams from this conference, and this is Northern Illinois in a nutshell for the last 10 years. Double-digit underdog when they step up in class. They've been covering a lot of numbers in this kind of price range here. And Ross Bowers, the quarterback, has had several starts back to when he was with California. He's an experienced guy. He had a bunch of starts there. He's played solid enough at quarterback for the Huskies. And the Nebraska defense has given up 8 yards per pass. And we go back to the thought of when you back your double-digit underdogs, we talked about Hawaii earlier, you want the team that can score and get you through the back door. When you've got a good passing offense like Northern Illinois has been, they've been a little bit more pass-heavy this year, and Nebraska giving up 8 yards per pass and getting shredded through the air this season. That's the kind of team, Northern Illinois, that can score through the back door, even if they fall down by more than 14. So I like the Huskies there getting 2 touchdowns tonight.
Good stuff, Ian. And hey, come right back at you because we're up against it time-wise. Texas Tech, Arizona, interesting kind of aspect of this game. Should be a lot of tickets written on this game, a lot of money bet on it. It's a singled-out late-night game. It's the only FBS versus FBS 10:30 Eastern kickoff. It's the get-back game. If you're down, you want to get back. If you're up, you want a cherry on top. All the sports bettors out there know what I'm talking about. Texas Tech versus Arizona. I like the Red Raiders, man. Talk me off of this. I haven't bet it yet, but I'm looking towards Texas Tech. What do you like, man?
Yeah, you know what? It would only be Texas Tech. I do not want Arizona. I don't believe in this team. I haven't been a fan of this Arizona team. We cashed a ticket with them against them with Hawaii in the first game of the season. I didn't get involved, obviously, last week. They were playing an FCS team, but I'm going to have to see them beat somebody good before I can trust them. I definitely would only look Texas Tech here in this game. The question is now they're going on the road for the first time. I like Alan Bowman, though, their quarterback. Matt Wells, new head coach. And what's funny is Matt Wells ran up-tempo offense at Utah State with his offensive coordinator there, David Yost, who comes over to Texas Tech here, and it's the same kind of up-tempo offense. It's not there's little elements of the offense that are different, like it's up-tempo like it was with Kingsbury. They do run the ball a little bit more. It was more pass-heavy with Kingsbury, but it's still up-tempo. It's not a huge learning curve going from Kingsbury's offense to the Matt Wells / David Yost offense here at Texas Tech. It does concern me that they only scored into the mid-30s, and they actually struggled at times to move the ball against UTEP last week, Texas Tech. That was a little bit odd that they did, but I think they're going to be able to move the ball against Arizona. Arizona's got very little, if any, defense. They showed it against Hawaii. Their pass defense in particular is atrocious. Alan Bowman, I think, has got the chance to pick that apart. I don't know what to make of Texas Tech's defense, though. Because it's been bad defense for years under Kingsbury. They really haven't been adequately tested yet through 2 games. UTEP's not going to test this defense whatsoever. That's the one thing Arizona will do tonight, Drew, is test this Texas Tech defense to see how good they are. Khalil Tate does look healthier. He did run the ball pretty well against Hawaii, even though they lost that game. Ran the ball, looked pretty healthy last week as well. And even his throwing or his passing has been improved. It's like Lamar Jackson. You got to compare Tate to the Lamar Jackson. They're not there yet in terms of being a good passing quarterback, but they're making strides forward. They're slowly getting better, and we're seeing that out of Tate. I'm going to see if this total keeps dropping because I might get in on the over. If it gets down more toward the low to mid-70s. 77 was very high. I didn't get involved in the open. I thought, wow, that was too high. And you got to be careful. Saw it with the Washington State-Houston game. These totals in the 70s, you need a clean ride, so to speak, to get them over the total, but we'll see if we can get this total down into the 73 range. If we can, I might pull the trigger on the over for sure. And I'm with you, Drew. And I got to see Arizona step up, beat a quality foe. For me, it would be Texas Tech or nothing from a side perspective.
Okay, good stuff, Ian. On the late night game, we got DJ Big Boss getting shout-outs on Kansas last night, man. Huge call there, DJ Big Boss, in terms of Man, that was a huge discrepancy from where the point spread was to picking the Jayhawks. First time in almost 50 games on the road against the Power 5 team coming out with a win. That was a nice call there, man. And we got to get to best bets. But is there any other game you wanted to bring up, DJ Big Boss?
No, not really. I'm ready to get the best bets. We're cutting down on time. We got to get these best bets in here.
Have at it, man. Start us off.
Let's jump right into it then. Best bet for me. Now, I was looking at SC as my best bet earlier in the week, but I did a little capping last night, and I seen a little something that I got to share with everybody on the show. We got a huge crowd in the chat, a huge crowd viewing, and I'm going to have to put my best foot forward on this one. Now, and it's, you know, all this talk of what games you should bet, what games you shouldn't bet, with predictions and all that stuff. The best thing that we all can agree upon is that we got to beat the book, you know. And right here on the third week, we got a lot of jagged lines. The book is trying to use computer analysts. Teams are not really giving them a good sample size, and we got the perfect situation here with last week's biggest loser, and that's Nevada, who lost to Oregon last week, pretty bad. So being that they lost so bad, I think the line is not where it should be in this game against Weber State. They go to see Weber State. You can get 7 on this, guys. You can get 7 on Nevada right here. And this is like we talk about this on the Boss and the Sauce early in the season. You know, when these coaches develop year for year, they work with the athletic director, scheduling games, putting the team in positions that the coach wanted check. And I went deep into capping, and I watched the interview with Coach Jay Novell over here at Nevada, and he said it in the interview. It was planned for this to happen. So they opened up against Purdue, and they got the win. Then they go play a tough team like Oregon at Oregon. So they knew they were going to get beat up a little bit. But they scheduled right after them Weber State and UTEP right before they go into conference play, when they really need the wins. So he said it in the interview that, you know, this was a chance to toughen this team up, give them, you know, they were outclassed. They knew they were outclassed. They fell into a lot of the things. But the amazing thing about it to me is they survived. No major injuries to nobody on the team to reckon. So if we can get anything looking like the second half team that we got against Purdue, against a team like Weber State, who defense is non-existent, we're gonna get a good game out of Nevada today. I think this is we blow past that 7 line, and this is my best bet of the day. Nevada minus the 7.
Boom! Great breakdown, DJ Big Boss. And actually, looking at SBR odds right now, I'm going to open up my bet online account. It's 6.5 minus 115. So we can give you that for best bets. Nevada minus 6.5 against Weber State. And if you're new to sports betting or new to college football betting, that is on the added board. An FBS versus FCS game. Weber State is in the FCS. So 6.5 minus 115 for DJ Big Boss on the Nevada Wolfpack there. We got Big Ragoo, the other half of Boss in the Sauce. Any other games you wanted to bring up, Big Ragoo? And also, what's your best bet, man?
I got to yell at my guy for picking on the big guy, picking on the little guy all the time. Quit bullying them schools around, man. I'm going to go with the game I gave you earlier, Michigan State. That's my best bet of the day. And money. You want to talk about the money dog, underdog, or you want to skip that section?
Yeah, go ahead, man.
Right, we'll cram that in real quick. I'm going to take a quick look on the game DJ was talking about. USC's coming into BYU. Now that game's got a freeze line on it, and there's a lot of action coming in on the USC side, but the line's not moving, so that tells me the sharps are on BYU. I think maybe a little bit of a look-ahead spot there for the USC. You know, got to play Utah next week, so give me BYU as my money dog under outright winner.
Okay, and you're liking Michigan State.
Michigan State play today.
Your best bet. Yeah. Okay. All right. Good stuff, Big Ragoo. And Ian Cameron on Twitter at Babana. What's your best bet, man?
I want to say one thing about the money line underdog quickly. I've been just rifling through the newspaper, online articles and information and stuff about whether Shea Wertz is going to start today for Georgia Southern. You know, he's been battling injury, but I'll tell you, if he starts, and even if he doesn't, Georgia Southern might give Minnesota a game there. I mean, Minnesota has been tricky to trust as a double-digit favorite. Georgia Southern, I think people a little bit, I guess, throwing them away in the dumpster a little bit after just getting thrashed by LSU a couple of weeks ago. But LSU's pretty damn good. And you might be getting some residual point spread value now with Georgia Southern today. I want to know if Wirtz plays because that'll make a big difference, but I definitely would lean into that direction. And maybe if you're looking for a shot in the dark, big money line underdog, maybe a Georgia Southern. I don't argue with Northern Illinois. I think they give Nebraska a game there, as I mentioned a little bit ago. So there's a couple for you with that. My best bet, I'm going to go right back to the game I talked about earlier in the show. I wasn't going to go with it, but I'm going to because I really like it. It's Air Force plus 3.5 against Colorado. I love the spot. It's a bet against spot for Colorado. 2 big, intense games. You got a Pac-12 game next week. You got Air Force. It's 11 a.m. local kickoff. That triple option, not something that Colorado spent a ton of time preparing for in the offseason, according to Mel Tucker. A suspect run defense. Air Force, a tremendous bet as an underdog throughout the Troy Calhoun era over the last several years. I think Air Force could win that game outright, but we'll gladly take the 3.5 with the Falcons for best bet.
Air Force plus 3.5 for Ian Cameron. I'm going on moneyline underdog. I'm looking for the Georgia State Panthers, about a 9 or 10 point underdog against Western Michigan, up in Western Michigan. And Dan Ellington, the quarterback, he showed it against Tennessee. He's a dual threat guy, really good there for Georgia State. I think that they have a puncher's chance. And at plus 275 underdog, I would look towards the Georgia State Panthers. And for my best bet, I'm going with UVA minus 7 now. You don't even have to lay that hook on the 7. I think Virginia at home, the better coach, the better quarterback, and being at home against Florida State, where who knows, they might show up, they might not, and it could be a long season there in Tallahassee. I think we take advantage sooner than later. UVA minus 7. For DJ Big Boss, Big Ragoo, Ian Cameron, I am Drew Martin. We will be back next Saturday, 11 a.m. Eastern time. Guys, thanks for tuning in, and best of luck with your bets.
Good luck, everybody.
Good luck, guys. See you next week.
Have a good Saturday.